Baldur's Gate 3 is going to get bigger. A lot bigger than I think people realize. The game out of the box already sports hundreds of hours of excellent gameplay. I think I have like 6 separate campaigns all going on at the exact same time. Please tell me I don't have a problem. Other people are doing this too, right? There's nothing wrong with me, right? Look, there's more content that is on the way, and there's actually a lot of content that I don't even think people are even thinking about. So let's talk about that today. Baldur's Gate 3 will go down as Larian Studios' most successful game to date, and rightfully so. It's not only broken Steam records, it continues to hold strong player counts almost a month after its release, and the game still hasn't been released on console, which is just going to add even more fuel to the fire. Not only has the game set a new standard for other games going forward, but it's provided players a game to live inside for quite a long time. And honestly, it's going to be for a lot longer than most players probably realize. Now, you've likely already seen through other videos or through Larian's community update that they've been very hard at work patching the game and trying to fix performance issues and squashing bugs all across Faerun. However, squashing bugs and performance issues aren't the only thing that Larian's been working on. In fact, they've been cooking up some really good stuff for us, and they already shared a little bit with us today. However, I'm just going to let you know, this is only the tip of the iceberg of the things that I've discovered. Recently, I made a video that was discussing cut content from Baldur's Gate 3, namely data mined odds and ends that just didn't make it into the final version of the game for one reason or another. And parts of that was actually origin character storylines that just didn't seem to conclude in the way that a lot of players felt was really finished. In response to this, Larian ended up discovering a bug that was preventing an origin character from using over 1,500 lines of dialogue. And if you've learned anything about dialogue in Baldur's Gate 3, much of that can impact the story, quests, world, and even character progression. Furthermore, Larian approached the topic of players being upset about content that didn't make it into the final version of the game, and said that they have plans to inject some of the removed content and make sure that origin characters in Baldur's Gate 3 get the endings and stories that they deserve. Now, I said this in my previous video when I was discussing cut content in the first place, but sometimes things just can't make it into the final version of the game because it just would make sense for that content to be there in the first place. However, I think it's great that Larian is so transparent about this issue and just immediately approaches even the smaller subset of fans that may be upset about these things. Most companies would have just came at us with some weird PR line and just try to quell the crowd and try to get some of those people to stop talking about it. But instead, Larian says, you know what? We didn't think it was something that you guys wanted, but now that you're saying you want it, yeah, sure, we'll look into it. How cool is that? Reading directly from Larian's community update, they say, we've seen 3 types of complaints that are being referred to as cut content. The first references content that actually doesn't properly trigger because of a bug. For instance, some of Minthara's reactivity. We've located what's causing that and are working on it. Expect a fix for this soon. The second is about the epilogue. What's been data mined isn't really cut content, but content we didn't want to release because we didn't think it worked. We're pretty strict with ourselves and our ideas. If it isn't good, if it isn't fun to play, it doesn't make it into the game. One of the reasons we trimmed the epilogue was because we were afraid that the ending cinematics were becoming too long and would detract from the epicness of the experience. But clearly, not everyone agrees with us, so we're going to do something about it. We've started expanding the epilogues, and you'll see the first results of this in patch 2, with the addition of a new optional ending for Karlach. It's fiery, poignant, and gives her the ending that she deserves. The third is about things we actually didn't plan for, and those we once considered but ultimately didn't do. Now, this next paragraph does contain spoilers, so you can skip ahead to my next monologue if you haven't finished the game yet. It was always our intention for the Upper City to be an epic, cinematic epilogue bringing the story of Baldur's Gate 3 to a close. But we didn't talk about that in advance because it would have been a major spoiler. We feel confident that there's enough content in Baldur's Gate 3 and the city itself, clocking in weeks-long playthroughs at a time. But that's not to say that Baldur's Gate 3 didn't see cuts just as every game. It's important to know that ultimately what shipped was planned long ago, in function primarily making Baldur's Gate 3 fun to play, not for us to close development quickly. When players are asking for a change in the industry, this is exactly what they're looking for. They didn't need to respond to this. They didn't need to answer the way that they did. They didn't need to provide any reasoning. But they did, because they respect the player. They respect the fan base. They respect the customer. Beyond that, they have their own artistic integrity, and they bring that into the discussion as well, saying that there's certain things that just weren't in our vision, and what we're playing is their vision, and we have to respect that. But also at the same time, they go further to say there's things that aren't in our vision that are in yours, and we respect that too, and we're going to look into making changes. I'm blown away. I thought that I couldn't be any more impressed by Larian Studios. And they just continue to raise the bar higher and higher. Now, aside from tying up character epilogues and making origin characters work properly, Larian is also planning to add a few much-needed quality of life features, one being named Wither's Wardrobe of Wayward Friends. Say that 5 times fast. And it has this fantastic poster. I love this. The community update reads saying, "We'll start making improvements based on the feedback you're giving us. Baldur's Gate means so much to a great deal of you, and in turn, that means the world to us. We love this game, and we're not done with it yet. We welcome your feedback, your threads, and also your words of encouragement." Wither's Wardrobe of Wayward Friends, which we hope to launch very soon, is an example of us integrating your feedback. This feature allows you to get rid of co-op party members who join your campaign, so you can continue on without them. We're also working on the ability for you to change your character's look once you've started a campaign, though we don't have a release date for that yet. There will be more, and you can expect us to come with modding support at some point too. Tell me, how does it feel to be heard? Feels fantastic, doesn't it? This is something that Larian absolutely had to get ahead of. They couldn't wait on this any longer, because just around the corner, you have a bunch of console players that are getting ready to play Baldur's Gate 3, and a lot of those folks are going to be playing this game multiplayer. The ability for us to be able to store the people that we've been playing with and then bring them out later at any time, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Even more so, the fact that we're going to be able to change our characters' appearances. Now I get to actually roleplay where my character gets like more rugged and beat up over time. I love it. Far too many times do developers completely ignore the outcry of the fans, and there ends up being features or bugs or issues or something like that that just drags us down and grinds us down over time to the point where we just don't enjoy the game as much because it makes the game less fun to play. Moreover, how many times do we get jaded because of the fact that developers just aren't listening to us and then we just stop playing the game entirely? This is a great thing that Larian got ahead of this, and it makes me so happy to hear. Now, the other thing that they brought up was modding support. And that, my friends, brings us to the most interesting part of this video. The most interesting part indeed. The transformative power of modding in games like Baldur's Gate 3 echoes the success that we've witnessed in other beloved titles like Minecraft, Fallout, and Skyrim. Just as these games have become enduring experiences thanks to their modding communities, Baldur's Gate 3 stands poised for a very similar evolution. The potential for modding injecting fresh narratives, quests, characters, and gameplay mechanics will elevate the game into a perpetual, player-driven adventure. The modding landscape, a proven catalyst of innovation and longevity, could further propel Baldur's Gate 3 into legendary status, granting players the opportunity to continue playing the game with even more variety. If we look back at Larian Studios' previous hit, Divinity Original Sin 2, the impact of modding is pretty evident. In Original Sin 2, the modding community was instrumental in crafting new stories, enhancing visuals, adding classes, expanding spell lists, and even adding more options to the character creator. The remarkable symbiosis between Larian and the modding community is already repeating itself in Baldur's Gate 3, fostering an environment where players themselves become the architects of the game's future, thereby making it a ever-evolving masterpiece. Even right now, modders have already released mods with more in-depth character creation, increased party size, camera mods, UI improvements, adding equipment, and even increasing max player level to 20 with some restrictions. Now, the great thing about modding in Baldur's Gate 3 is that Larian Studios always really keeps a very close eye on what the modding community is doing. And if they can implement anything the modders are doing into the game, they will. They've done it before with Divinity Original Sin 2, where they gave it a gift bag. That way, even console players had the opportunity to modify their play, have a different type of experience, add more to the game. Now, the thing that people really aren't paying attention to with Baldur's Gate 3 is that this game is wildly popular. Breaking Steam records is one thing, but the sales for this game are probably the most Larian's ever seen. With that is going to attract an entirely different modding community, a much more lively modding community. Not only is it going to invigorate the people that have already been modding Baldur's Gate 3, but it's also going to attract a whole entire new crowd of people because of just how wide of an audience Baldur's Gate 3 has hit. There's really no telling just how big some of these mods are going to be. Now, in a video by The Rules Lawyer, I'll link his channel down below, he talks about how Baldur's Gate 3 may ruin Wizards of the Coast plans for their virtual tabletop game. And I think he's right. While Larian Studios has no plan to add a DM mode for Baldur's Gate 3 like they did for Original Sin 2, Larian has hinted in an interview that we shouldn't underestimate what modders are capable of. While they didn't have the time or the resources to create a world editor, players and modders may collaborate to make the impossible possible. The collaborative potential of modders and players to create a robust Dungeon Master mode or world builder for Baldur's Gate 3 would be something paralleled by the successes of games like Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, DayZ, or Dota. Just as Counter-Strike emerged from a mod to a full-fledged shooter, the modding community's creativity and dedication could very well lead to a very similar situation here with Baldur's Gate 3. By harnessing the great foundation Baldur's Gate 3 has already set, a player-driven Dungeon Master mode could organically evolve into a comprehensive virtual tabletop experience that would directly compete with Wizards of the Coast's official offering, especially given that Wizards of the Coast wants to make their virtual tabletop experience a subscription-based program. Now, there are two reasons why I think this is not only possible, but probable. Reason being, one, Larian is going to give the modding community every tool they need to be able to make this happen. They're going to have full access to the game, which means they're going to be able to do whatever they want, whatever they can dream up, which is absolutely fantastic. Two, there is a lot of motivation for D&D players to collaborate on this and make this happen. Specifically because, one, they're pretty jaded when it comes to Wizards of the Coast to begin with, and two, they're going to try to charge a subscription base to be able to play the virtual tabletop anyway. Why would you want to do that when you could instead be able to play it for free and probably have a far better version of it to play in the first place? I mean, it's a completely different story if you're going to a card shop or a comic book store and you pay monthly to be able to go and play there, but that's not what this is. Now, high ambitions aside, there is something else that's incredibly valuable to the modding community. As mentioned previously, game development often requires a lot of tough decisions about what content does and doesn't make it into the final release. Baldur's Gate 3 being no exception, with data miners uncovering a wealth of hidden content that didn't make it into the final game. However, this is a potential treasure trove of unused assets that offer a lot of exciting opportunities for modders to breathe new life into the game far after its release. By leveraging these leftover elements, modders can create unofficial expansions that seamlessly integrate with the existing content, providing fresh narratives, quests, and extended experiences. Just as modders have revitalized games in the past, their ability to salvage and reimagine some of these abandoned concepts has a lot of potential for Baldur's Gate 3's future. I have full confidence that the modding community and Baldur's Gate 3 are going to do incredible things in the future, mostly because of the fact that people just love this game. You love this game so much you actually watch my videos. That's crazy. One of the other things that I've seen is a lot of people talk about expansions for Baldur's Gate 3, so I want to take some time to talk about that as well. Keep in mind, Larian Studios has never released an expansion or DLC for their game, paid DLC for their games, ever before. So us expecting it now probably isn't the smartest thing. This game, within a month after its release, has already carved its way into being one of the greatest RPGs of all time. A game that has set people's expectations for games in the future, and it's a game that's done a great job of showcasing just how great Larian is at creating immersive worlds and awesome experiences. The other thing is that this is the most successful game that Larian has ever made. If it isn't yet, it will be very soon. Sven Vinka came out and said he was only expecting 100,000 concurrent players on Steam. Well, we busted through that with 875,000 players. And we're still holding 500,000 players strong almost a month after the game's release. This game is far more successful than Larian probably ever could have imagined. And as such, that might retune the way that they look at Baldur's Gate 3 and future expansions. Now, while I know that a possibility of a future expansion does excite me and, well, other players as well, It's essential to recognize and respect Larian's commitment to their craft. Fans have grown to admire Larian for their unyielding dedication to creating exceptional games driven by their passion and their artistic vision. If their philosophy leads them to focus on new projects rather than adhering to industry standards and creating expansions and DLC, then it's just another testament to their integrity and their desire to continue to make great games and push their creative boundaries. Ultimately, whether Larian chooses to explore new horizons with Baldur's Gate 3 or embraces their unique path, their genuine devotion to their craft should be applauded. I mean, this is the reason why we love Larian to begin with. Patches, community feedback, modding, maybe a expansion in the future, the possibility of a Baldur's Gate 3 virtual tabletop. There are a lot of things to look forward to, a lot of things for us to hopefully look forward to, and a lot of things that we just know are going to end up happening over time anyway. This launch, this game has been absolutely insane. Also, I can't thank you guys enough for all the support that I've received from you. The channel has absolutely exploded. I can't go over like the exact numbers because I don't have them in front of me, but it's been like 6,000 subscribers in the last like 4 weeks or something like that. It's insane. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support, the kind comments, the likes, the everything. The fact that you guys are watching the videos, the subscribers are watching the videos, is the reason why the videos keep doing so well to begin with. So literally, the success of the channel is your success. You're the ones that are making it happen, and I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate it because I just have so much I just have so much fun doing this. Look, my next video is going to be my review of Baldur's Gate 3. This is going to be an incredibly special video to me. I'm nervous about it, and I'm looking forward to it. More than anything, I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. This has been an absolutely wild ride. I can't wait to cover more Baldur's Gate stuff in the future, as well as other games. I have to cover other games too. But thanks. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends, and after I get off work tomorrow, I'll see you guys in Baldur's Gate. Peace.